The CEHS Distinguished Alumni for 2008 is Dr. John Mackiel, Superintendent of the Omaha Public Schools. John, welcome to the College of Education and Human Sciences.
Thank you, Larry, very, very much, and it's indeed a privilege. It means a great deal. I'm a big fan of the university system.
Well, we're a big fan of Omaha Public Schools, and I have to say, when I read your resume, which I hadn't seen for a while, it was quite impressive, and so I would like, if you don't mind, for you to tell us a little bit about yourself, both professionally and personally, interests at work and maybe some interests outside of work.
Sure. Well, let me begin very quickly with the personal side of that. I think there's no greater testimony to an institution wherein an individual who was tied to that, as I was, would send their own daughters, and that's exactly what happened. I'm a proud father of two UNL alum. My youngest is a graduate of the Teachers College. My oldest is a graduate of the law school, and UNL we're now second generation. I'm looking forward. I'm going to be a grandfather here in a few months,
terrific.
and so I'm looking forward to a third generation of UNL alum. The professional side of that, I am a graduate of, at that time, Norfolk Junior College, and I had gone to, it's now Northeast Technical Community College. And I had a non-traditional high school career, so I considered Norfolk my real grounding. And from there, I moved back. Debbie and I were married when we were sophomores at Northeast Community College. We moved back to Omaha. Deb went to work for the Omaha Public Schools as a secretary. I finished out my credentials in the College of Education at UNO. My first assignment was Central High School. I was moved to Burke High School. I became a guidance counselor at Northwest High School. But all the while, I continued to go back to school. As I was teaching English, I received a master's degree in English. It became very apparent about 3 years into teaching that young people, in addition to being really excited about Beowulf, were in the process of growing up. And so I wanted to help the most I could, and I went back to guidance and counseling and went into the area of guidance and counseling and became a guidance counselor, and from that particular point went back for my certification in administration. And then I was fortunate to come to UNL, and there was a new program that was starting in the College of Educational Administration called Human Community Services. And my particular area was personnel. I happened at that time to be recruiting teachers for the Omaha Public Schools. And out of that grounding, and it was the best 3 years of experience in terms of studying, I would come to UNL, the interaction of the student body, focused on really adult learning, adult teaching strategies. At the same time, I was provided the opportunity to blend that with legal studies. I was very, very interested in that particular area, and I consider that a formula for days to come, and working with boards of education and working with teachers, that it was a wonderful, wonderful preparation program. Part of the theme of my graduation experience was lifelong learning, and I became passionate about that, and I was fortunate to head to law school. And I want to just quickly tell you how I did that.
Sure.
The bottom line is I couldn't quit. I was about to have my first child. Natalie was going to be born. I wanted to go to law school. I couldn't take the 3 years off. And what I did is I literally used the guidance and counseling department at Burke High School. I would log in at night and look for colleges around the country that were open, city colleges that were literally open 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And I found one in Washington, D.C. And it was a program where I qualified for a student loan. I took out a loan, bought 3 years worth of airline tickets, and I would commute Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, stay Saturday, Sunday, and come home and work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, leave after work. And did that for 3 years, and graduated from Antioch School of Law. And again, the commitment to try to keep aware and understanding whether it was business, the University of Michigan. I studied city planning at MIT, and I have been, for the past decade, enrolled every summer at Columbia Teachers College, just trying to keep my hand in the events around the country, and met wonderful individuals who have helped advance the goals and the mission of the Omaha Public Schools. So.
Talking with us about your background, your continuing education is a wonderful testimony to lifelong learning. And when I read your resume, I was really quite taken back by the amount of time you've invested in your professional life to continue your learning. So let's go on with that just a little bit. You've provided leadership for the state's largest school system since 1997 as superintendent of schools. What kind of experiences and preparation have contributed to that leadership role?
Where I served as the chief financial officer as an English major. That was opened up a whole new world, which again prompted return to school to try to understand better the financing and budgeting processes. I served as the assistant superintendent for personnel, and I've always maintained that that's 85% of running an organization, that we're labor intense, it's the human capital, it's the human beings, and I believe that was a tremendous preparation platform, was the work with our teachers, our support team. Prior to that, I was the chief negotiator. We're a highly unionized organization, and as a result of that, served as the chief negotiator. Prior to that, was an assistant to the superintendent, was involved in the accreditation process. It was our school improvement process, and felt that the opportunity to work firsthand with the development of curriculum and effective practices was important. Prior to that, recruiter for the school district, a guidance counselor for youngsters, and an English teacher that tried to get young people fired up about Beowulf and all of the other classical literature.
So an excellent preparation. Now, do you have a law degree in addition to your master's in labor law?
I do, Larry.
Okay.
Yes.
That's as we look at preparing people for the superintendency, one of the questions we ask ourselves as a unit that works with preparation leadership is how extensive and broad should that background be? And when we looked at yours, Don Erling and I both said, wow, this is, if people could do it, this would really be a wonderful background to have.
I've said I am fortunate to teach school law in January. I think that's spring semester, though it feels like winter. But I've always maintained that number one, it's more exciting than any Tuesday night TV show could possibly be. You can't make that up. But it's an excellent opportunity in terms of preparing individuals, and I felt that a piece of that could have and might be considered at the undergraduate level in terms of the magnitude. Public education is crumbling under the pressure, the weight of law, unless there is relief. I can't think of a single time that a statute has been removed when one has been added.
Yes.
And you add that over the course of 2 centuries in terms of the shaping by policy, the shaping by statute of the rules and regulations in public schools, all of this talk of charter. The bottom line is, if that's good enough for some kids, let's step out from underneath the pressures placed on public education and maybe reassess that. And so in this day and age, it's almost a survival tool in manipulating and moving through 200 years worth of law that has impacted public ed decision making.
That's a good point, and one that I've noted. You're well known for your commitment to students and for providing opportunities for all students to learn. When you think of that context, the student context, what are some of the major concerns for school leaders in America as they consider how to provide a real world-class education for all students? You mentioned the 200 years of law and how that's complicated our lives in some respects. What other things do you see out there?
But I believe it is overdue, and it is long past the time that there needs to be, in my opinion, a reaffirmation of the principles and the ideals of public schools. The concepts that were brought about by the ideal of a common school experience, the idea of bringing youngsters from all backgrounds, all walks of life, all religious beliefs, kids who have gone on vacation, kids who have thought about college and youngsters who haven't, kids who have been read to before they come to school, and kids who have been plopped in front of a television set, and that's their experience, all coming together. That's a tremendous, tremendous asset that youngsters bring, and I'm very, very worried about the continuation of isolation and fragmentation of school experiences for youngsters, in some cases based on race, in some cases based on class, in some cases based on the opportunities that a property tax might provide. And I'm going to just quickly hasten to say that I am becoming more of an advocate for an amendment to our Constitution to address this issue, that when you think about anything that has been important in our country, the right to bear arms, we amended the Constitution. When it was important to move potatoes from Idaho to Virginia, we didn't say to the states, well, you decide the standard of the width of the railroad track, or you decide the gauge of steel. What we said is, here's the plan, consistent railroad track, consistent use of steel, and we applied that across country. The same concept needs to be applied to public education. The expectation that whether a youngster is born in the Delta of the Mississippi or in Lake Forest, Illinois, they ought to have the same opportunities provided in their public education experience. And I worry that the erosion of the concept of the common good, the erosion of the principles of public education have gone on too long unaddressed. And I see that a matter that this next generation of educational leaders are going to be at a critical time of deciding whether those are worth saving and reinvesting, or we yield to this misguided movement of education simply becoming another consumer commodity based on the education or based on the wealth of an individual. So goes their educational experience. I happen to believe that the principles and the ideals of public education are worth standing up and fighting for.
Good comment. You're aware of the work of the Horace Mann League of the United States to support public education. Mm-hmm. And we've seen something very similar to what you're describing is fragmentation, people actually bailing out of the public system and choosing their own systems, mm-hmm. leaving the public education system with folks that are sometimes hard to work with, but don't have any other choice. And I think many times they feel like they're the ones that got chosen to be in a public system and everybody else went on to something else. I'm a big advocate for public ed, and I worry about the same things that you do in that concern. When you look back over your career, which hasn't been all that long yet,
oh gosh, Larry.
What are some of the highlights of your career?
I tell you, my practice has always been to eat lunch in schools on a daily basis. I've never lost the opportunity to do that. And I think the interaction with young people, the opportunity to realize on a daily basis what we say, how we say it, impacts in ways that we can't imagine. And I believe it's a real privilege. It's a privilege to work with young people and families. The highlights have been the opportunities to see students, and I've been fortunate, who are now serving as principals in the Omaha Public Schools. Students who go on and impact the lives of youngsters, whether they're assistant football coaches at UNL or whatever it might be. It's been a profession that I consider it an honor to have served in, and bottom line is advocated and encouraged my own youngsters to consider that. And as proud as can be that I have a second grade teacher and an individual who has moved in the area of law, Natalie, that is I hope affecting lives in another way. But we've been blessed that way.
When you speak with youngsters at lunch or elsewhere in your school district, what kind of things do they tell you?
Larry, it's interesting. Every youngster, regardless of background, regardless of life experience, I believe has the same goals and hopes and dreams. And that comes through time and time again. We have 88 different languages in the Omaha Public Schools. We have 10,000 youngsters who are learning English as a first language, but it's consistent that the ideals of America, the ideals of democracy, the opportunity to make decisions in the voting booth and the jury box and the marketplace, all of those come to bear in this 6-hour experience, 179 days in preparing young people to be citizens for the 21st century. They tell me in many, many ways that their life is different than mine, that childhood has been deprioritized for them. They've been relegated to a different type of a childhood than you and I experienced. Youngsters see that investments that are being made, and more importantly, investments that aren't being made in childhood. The absence of the safe and the secure childhood growing process. Youngsters, as we read on a nightly basis of 33 rounds shot into the side of the home, we sometimes don't realize that the focus on standardized testing preparation may not be a priority. The 500 homeless youngsters that we have who want a quality educational experience, whose 6 hours are the best 6 hours of the day in many, many cases. And so the message that I walk away with is we have tremendously talented young people who are resilient, who are hopeful, and who are depending on a whole lot of adults right now to change that prioritization process. $25 million walking bridges that go nowhere are wonderful, but a passage over a busy highway that a youngster is walking to school ought to be considered in the same decision-making process. And youngsters see that and remain hopeful.
Given that perspective, which I think is a wonderful perspective that you get to have on a daily basis, do you think the general public, one, is aware of the conditions you talked about with childhood, and two, do you think they're empathetic enough to care about children?
Where I lived through the last 3 years, a situation wherein I concluded without hesitation that there was not awareness. And I can also, without hesitation, respond to the second half of that question. I do believe there is care. I do believe there is regard when awareness. And sometimes getting to that awareness is difficult. It shouldn't be as hard as it is sometimes. But when you think about what's happening in our state right now as a result, and I've said publicly that individuals who could be investing in professional football teams, individuals who could be buying multiple yachts, when given the facts and presented with the information and have an opportunity to review the fact that a poverty level in a large city is deplorable, are investing in human capital right now. When you see that youngsters in a two-county area who graduate from a public school with a 2.5 will have their college tuition paid for, when you see a commitment to, rather than declaring a national goal that every child will come to school ready to learn, wipe your hands, walk away and say, we did that. We have philanthropists who are investing now in early childhood education opportunities for kids in poverty. And so I am very, very hopeful that the conversations that are difficult at times will result in pronounced action that has the potential to impact lives. So I remain hopeful.
Given the place where you work and the events of the last 2 or 3 years, when you look forward and make your plans for the next 5 years for Omaha Public Schools, what are the 1 or 2 or 3 top priorities that you see for OPS?
It always, our primary goal always remains high student achievement for young people, and I believe out of the conversations that will come is a realization that youngsters are arriving at different points. Youngsters need different strategies, methodologies. Larry, I know I would need a whole lot more time than you would in terms of understanding calculus. If I had the same 60 minutes and 179 days, and the expectation is that we would both be proficient, I'll guarantee I would not be. The reality of it is we're moving to a time where understanding the individualized educational needs of youngsters, giving John Mackiel that 120 minutes of calculus for 210 days, he can arrive at possibly a proficiency level that's been set. And I believe that's a goal in the next 36 months that will be realized. I believe that absent a legislatively enacted universal four-year-old program or a universal quality early childhood program, a lot of criticism fell my way when I made the statement, kiddingly, that we ought to eliminate 12th grade and take all those resources and invest it in early childhood, and we'd get a greater return on our dollar when you consider the proms and the homecomings and the senior activities. My point was simply that we needed to begin investing in early childhood. I'm very encouraged in terms of the movement toward that. We're going to be realizing the impact of that as a state across the next 3 years. Omaha Public Schools with its Head Start program I think will realize dividends in terms of early childhood education. And then finally, I remain hopeful and optimistic that the conversations about teaching will take a different course. The time has come that an individual who says, I want to take on a very challenging situation, rather than being labeled by their government as not being highly qualified, and rather than being labeled because the youngsters who aren't speaking English at the 8th grade are reading at a 3rd grade level, rather than celebrating that success, we're embarking upon as a nation a criticizing of some of our most important ambassadors to hope. And I believe that education and the prioritization of those who teach is long overdue in terms of recognition, certainly by way of the traditional means of recognition, what we pay and what we invest, and also a celebration of the contribution that they're making. And I remain hopeful in the next 36 months that that progress will be made there as well.
Well, I hope so, and that's a wonderful direction, and I wish you the very best with that.
Thank you.
Are there some things that you would like to tell us as we conclude the interview that I have not asked you and that you have a burning desire to share?
Sure. There are only that, again, words are, I'm unable to express the appreciation that at the time you go through the process, you know you're encountering inspiring and unique individuals. And just like teaching in the high school or the elementary level, that college teaching that inspires, that college teaching that requires that individuals come together from all across this great state, bringing different ideas, different perspectives, experiencing that college campus environment focused on the principles and the ideals of public ed. I truly, truly appreciate again, the individuals I encountered, the human beings that inspired, the commitments that continue. Very appreciative of the University of Nebraska and its commitment to public ed and the individuals in the department that you certainly head up. I'm forever grateful, and I thank you.
Well, I thank you. I can understand why you're leading the largest school district in the state, because the words you've spoken are truly inspirational, and you as an individual are inspirational. We're very pleased to have you.
Thank you very much, Larry. Appreciate it very much.